caving to the Democrats. Joining me right now is Florida Congressman Greg Steube. He is also a member of the Judiciary and Foreign Affairs Committees. Congressman, it's great to see you this morning. Thanks so much for being here. Is Mitch McConnell caving again to Joe Biden?
Well, call me conservative, but I just don't understand why we would help the Democrats when they've been in control of the House, the Senate, and have the White House since January. And if we're going to increase the debt limit to allow them to spend more money on socialist welfare programs, the Democrats want to spend $5.5 trillion on top of a $1.2 trillion infrastructure package, on top of the $11 trillion that we've spent just in the last 18 months. I certainly didn't vote for the debt increase in the House. I'm not going to support it in the future. Washington has a spending problem, and until our leaders in Washington realize that we can't continue to spend at this level, then we're going to continue to fall deeper into debt.
Well, it's just extraordinary to me that you and your colleagues are not getting much from this. I mean, sure, we know that the U.S. is not going to default. The Democrats can ensure that that is the case without the Republicans' assistance. But let's look at these bills. What are you getting? What are conservatives getting out of this infrastructure plan? What is it, 10 or 11% infrastructure? You don't have any money for the border wall. You don't have any money for the Department of Defense, because obviously you've got our adversaries rising, like China and Russia and others, Iran. He wants to get into an Iran nuclear deal again, and yet you don't have a dime extra in defense spending, even as our adversaries are rising. How do you explain that?
Yeah, of that $1.2 trillion in infrastructure, only 6% of that goes to traditional infrastructure, roads, bridges, ports, and that sort of thing. Everything else is socialist welfare plans, child care for everybody, Green New Deal light, all sorts of spending that we don't need as Americans that the left wants. So I don't understand why we would cave to them, allow them to increase the debt ceiling when they're just going to spend all this money on all these social programs that the majority of Republicans, I would say the majority of Americans, don't support us spending, especially the amount of money that we've spent as a country over the last 18 months.
Do you think they're going to be able to get this reconciliation plan through? I know that Joe Manchin said he would go for something $1.5 trillion, but it's not really the cost, is it? It's the programs, the additional programs that are being put in place that will not go away after a year or two, as they are trying to have us believe.
Well, you're right, because once we fund a program in Washington, good luck trying to take that away from the people that are receiving those benefits. They couldn't pass it in the House, but that's just because the progressives locked down because they wanted their $3.5 trillion in socialist welfare spending on top of the $1.2 trillion in infrastructure. But if the progressives say, OK, we're OK with 1.2 or 2.5 trillion in the House, they'd have the votes just with the Democrats in the House to pass both infrastructure and the reconciliation package or the spending plan in the House, and then it would go to the Senate, and it's all going to be up to Joe Manchin and Sinema out of Arizona to decide whether that's the best direction for our country or not. If one of those individuals don't vote for it, then it dies on the Senate side. But there's going to be a lot of pressure from Democrats across the country. I mean, you see them chasing Sinema into a bathroom, harassing her on airplanes to try to bully her into voting for these bills. So if it does pass the House, which it couldn't, Pelosi didn't have the votes the last couple of weeks to pass it. If it does finally pass the House because they have an agreement, it's going to be tough to pass the Senate. So I sure hope that Manchin and Sinema hold on.
Well, it's disgusting that they're being harassed like this. And then you've got the leader of the free world saying that, oh, this is just part of the process. That's disgusting. And also, I understand that the surveillance of all of our bank accounts is in the reconciliation plan. I want to know if Hunter Biden is going to get his bank account surveilled, because California elites were flocking to Hunter Biden's art show in Hollywood on Friday, including the L.A. mayor. Eric Garcetti was there. Garcetti is the Biden administration's nominee to be the U.S. ambassador to India. So, of course, he's got to go kiss the ring as Joe Biden's poll numbers are plummeting. The latest Quinnipiac poll finds the president's approval rating at 38%, Congressman. What are you going to do about this potential money laundering situation of art that Hunter Biden is selling art for $500,000? Can you insist that his bank account is surveilled the way the rest of us are going to see every transaction reported to the IRS above $600?
Well, it won't be. We've been told on the Judiciary Committee for years now that he's being investigated for money laundering and payments from China and all these different things, that nothing has come of that. But that's what's so important about Republicans taking the House back next fall, because then we can provide oversight, then we can do investigations, then we can start subpoenaing documents to get the actual facts and do recommendations to the DOJ on what should be prosecuted. But with Biden in the White House and a Democratic Congress, that's not going to happen. There's going to be no oversight. We're going to push this on the American people and surveil everything over $600 in your bank account, but it's okay for us to still be getting paid by the Chinese Communist Party.
Unbelievable. Well, look, I know that you are likely going to have a victory next year because the policy on the left cannot work. They can't get voted in on this kind of policy. But, of course, you're coming off of a very strong victory last week. Let's take a look at last week's congressional baseball game, Congressman. Watch.
Democrats were trying to get caught up. Wow, this is a long
Greg Steube with the first pitch, and the first swing is going to be a home run. Steube out of the ballpark into the left field bleachers.
All right, home run, Congressman. Nice going. A little birdie told me you've done that before, huh?
Well, thank you. And what we've been saying is Republicans won this September. We're going to win next November, take the House back from Speaker Pelosi and start being a stopgap against all this horrible spending that's happening in Washington.
All right, we want to see more home runs from you, Greg Steube, on all fronts. You got to get tough with the with your competitors and with your congressmen and allies on the other side, because the American people are counting on you. Congressman, thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.